Welcome to part 6. In part 5, I showed you how when I used a ggplot function with layers, including the statistics layer, how it didn't work the way it did last year when I used this same function and layers in class. And so I was confused. Why is this giving me the mean of x for each value of y instead of the other way around? Well, there's a little hint right up here that I discovered, a warning message. It said fun.y, which meant function of y, is deprecated. What that means when you see that message is that this has been phased out. They still allow you to put it in. So Hadley Wickham, who writes the tidyverse, still allows me to put in function of y. However, it's what has happening to it now has changed and is now better described with this function command that's abbreviated fun. This wasn't much fun for me to figure this out, but nonetheless, that's abbreviated fun. So the first thing it says that I need to do is switch this from function of y to I should just be using fun. Well, now function of y being gone, that tells me that I don't know whether this is looking at the mean of x or the mean of y. So then I had to figure out which is it. Let me also, while I'm at it, show you the fact that function of y is deprecated made me put in this command, watch up in my console window, package version ggplot2. What did I do? Oh, I didn't put it in quotes. So it thought that ggplot2 was an object. All right. It's version 3.3.0. That tells me that in spite of the fact that Hadley Wickham put a message on his website and on his GitHub that he was done developing ggplot2 and all he was doing was maintenance. It looks to me like he's had a major version release since he said that. So I don't know if he's come back and modified that statement. But what I told you earlier about now that it's just in maintenance, there's obviously been an update during this last year. And that update included something that he was doing on this. Well, to make a long story short, because it did take me a long time to figure this out, what he decided is that when someone is obtaining a mean, they want to obtain the mean of y for every value of x, and they don't want it the other way around. And so what he did was he tried to guess which is the response variable, regardless of whether it's on the x or y axis. I did some web searching and I found where he talked about that you could switch the x and y axis and the means will automatically switch. Well, that led me to think, wait a minute. He's not just taking the response variable to be on y, he's figuring out what's the response variable. And in this case, he's figuring it out wrong. Why? Why is he guessing wrong? So then I went ahead and put in MPG and I looked at highway and displacement and noticed something. Highway is an integer. Displacement is a double. Normally, when we have a response variable, it can be any value. And when we have an explanatory variable, it's often groups. And so it's often done as an integer. So in this particular case, he's looking at the values of displacement and the values of highway, and he's guessing that displacement is the response variable and highway is the explanatory variable. That's going to work most of the time. in terms of those guesses he's making based on double and integer, but it's not working here. And I just happened to stumble on a case where it's not working. And in fact, I could even write him and show him this example. And I bet that he would do some further development because he's very responsive. I'm always amazed at how responsive he is given how much he gets done. So that was very difficult to figure out. I would not have expected that you'd be able to figure it out being new to this. I'm going to do something here and show you how my theory turns out to be correct. I'm going to take those highway values and I'm just going to change them a tiny little bit. Instead of rounding, I'm going to change them so that highway now is what it originally was plus 0.01. Okay, so that doesn't really change. Instead of 29 miles per gallon, it's 29.01 miles per gallon. So that's really not going to change anything with my data. But what it's going to do, if I do this, is now if I look at miles per gallon, highway now has become a double. And not only has it become a double, but it's become a double with more unique values than displacement has. And so now, my guess when I did that was now that whatever algorithm's being used to guess at which one is the response variable now is going to guess that highway's the response variable. So let's run it again and see if I was right. And I was right. Notice now that we're getting the mean of y for every value of x. In 99% of the cases, when you want the mean of y for every value of x, it's going to be pretty clear to the algorithm which one is the response and which one is the explanatory. I just happened to find that one little subtle case, that 1%, in which the algorithm guessed wrong. It's not very often when you have this many values of the explanatory variable that you're going to want to condition on that explanatory variable to get the mean. So this isn't going to really happen very often. I just happened to pick an example in which it did. Now, this is what I really wanted. I wanted to look at the mean of highway mileage for every value of displacement, and you can see how that statistic is working there in this particular case. Okay, let me go ahead and copy this and change something. I'm just going to go ahead and stick it in here temporarily right here. Let's say that I was doing cylinders, the number of cylinders on the car, which I think is CYL. Let's see. Yeah, CYL right here. So the number of cylinders on the car for highway instead of displacement for highway. And in this case, the number of cylinders is also an integer. And not only that, it's going to have fewer values, fewer unique values than highway. So I surmised when I tried this that the algorithm would guess right for this because this is a more common occurrence. And sure enough, it does. So highway here. And by the way, if you switch highway back to its original integer form, it still works. So highway will work just fine here for getting the mean of that highway mileage per cylinder. Okay? That's a little detour. If you have not been paying attention, it's time to pay attention again because now I'm going to walk you through this stat function. So I already talked about how the function here of mean, we could switch that to median, we could switch that to whatever we want it to be, whatever function there is in R that we want to be calculated. I'm calculating the mean at every value of displacement, and I'm showing that with a point that's double in size and it's red. Okay? All right, so that ends our little detour and begins our more serious discussion of the statistics layer. And so I will see you again in part 7, where we'll continue the discussion of the statistics layer.